Hello, welcome to A-Level Chemistry. My name is Colin Doherty, and we're going to talk a little bit through the A-Level course at the Hastings campus. Quick little thing about me, I've been teaching A-Level Chem for around about 16 years. I'm a curriculum quality lead also, and I have a second job as an examiner, so I'm the guy marking the papers on the other end for the exam boards as well, which helps. Okay, the course. It's a 2-year linear A-level. It's externally assessed at the end of the 2 years. There are 3 terminal examinations of 2-hour duration each. So you've got 6 hours of exams that give you your final grade. We've also got modular assessment during the course. So for every module I would teach, I'll have an internal assessment to track progress and put intervention in place if it's necessary to do so. There are also 12 required practicals over the course. There's a lot more practical then as well, but there are 12 that form part of your practical pass component of the course. You will find that the course is basically split up into physical chemistry, inorganic chemistry, and organic chemistry. And if you don't really know what those are at this point, it doesn't really matter. The teaching is in a lab, more of that in a minute, and just so that you know, chemistry is a prerequisite for UK universities to study medicine, dentistry and veterinary science, and quite a lot of other science related disciplines as well, so that's worth knowing. In terms of getting into the course, what we would like to see from you is our standard entry requirement of 5 GCSEs with a minimum grade 4, so anything between 4 and 9. And in addition to that, as part of that, we would like to see a grade 6 in GCSE chemistry or a 6/6 in science and additional science. You don't have to do GCSE chemistry to study A-level chemistry. If you've done science and additional science, that's also acceptable. But we do need, like I say, grade 6s in those. The mathematical component of chemistry is reasonably demanding, so we do need a GCSE grade 6 in mathematics also. Don't get too stressed about the maths, and there's certainly no requirement to study A-level maths. It helps for a few parts of it, but there is no absolute requirement for A-level maths with A-level chem. Okay, a little bit more about the course. I'm not going to read this slide. You can look through this at your leisure. But you can see, like I say, it's broken into physical, inorganic and organic in both years 1 and years 2. The assessment in year 1 is internally assessed along with the practical component, and year 2 is also internally assessed until you get to the final term where there's the 3 examinations that we talked about a minute ago at the end of, usually end of May, beginning of June time. Okay, let me just move that out of the way. How I study and what is the space like? Well, basically the taught content is delivered in a laboratory setting. We've got a really well-equipped lab, there's fume hoods, there's technical support. So we make good use of that, quite a lot of practical work. There's also a requirement for independent study. So for every hour of taught time, you'll get 4.5 hours of contact time in a week. We would anticipate at least 4.5 hours of independent study to go alongside that. So there's facilities on site to do that. There's really good library which you can support to do that, or you can go and study at home. Where does it take you? What you do after your course, almost all my students go on to study at university. Like I said earlier, medicine, veterinary science, veterinary medicine, dentistry, you have to do A-level chem, along with things like studying chemistry degrees, biochemistry, pharmacy, natural sciences, environmental science, lots and lots of other things as well, including students go on to study mathematics, geography, history, psychology, sociology this year, and quite a few other things. It's a really well thought of A-level, so it's definitely worth considering. A quick quote there from our student president. I'm not going to read that out because there's nothing worse than people reading PowerPoint slides. But again, you can read that. It's a pretty good environment. Big building, pretty laid back atmosphere, lots of facilities. So definitely it's a nice place to be. Right, costs. fairly minimal for A-level chemistry. You're going to need a textbook. They're generally around about a £10 to £20 mark. The best ones are exam board specific texts, and you'll also need a supply of paper and a file. Beyond that, calculator is pretty much all you need. That and the desire to work pretty hard, because it's a challenging course, but it's definitely doable. Right, I think that's pretty much all I need to say. If you have any questions, there is a chat function. If you can type any questions that you've got into the chat, I will try and address them. But if not, please feel free to get in touch, and we can deal with any queries that you may have. And if you have any questions, yep, fire away. First question says, I'm interested in chemistry and biology. Should I take 2 A-levels or the BTEC? That's a great question. First thing I would say is, if you have a specific progression route in mind, for example, if you wanted to go and study dentistry, you need to go and check very carefully what the entry requirements are for those courses, because some of them won't accept BTECs. BTECs are very widely accepted, but there are specific courses and specific universities that will require you to study A-levels. So that's the first thing. The second part of that is that if you are studying at BTEC, half of your assessment is internally assessed as coursework, whereas the chemistry and biology A-level route, it's all terminally assessed via examinations. So if you want a bit more of a chat about that, again, get in touch and we can talk in more detail. Second question says, what kinds of experiments will we do, and what's your favourite bit about the course? I love teaching the experiments. The experiments are generally great fun. They're really engaging. There's lots of different experiments. If you want to see the 12 required practicals, the best thing to do is to download the specification. We're studying the AQA specification, and you can see all the practicals that are required. There's also a lot more that we would do. So quite a lot of organic practicals. There's a lot of energy change practicals. There will be synthesis practicals where, for example, we will make a drug, make aspirin, is the one we normally do, and then we would purify it, and then we would test it. We also manufacture esters, and again, purify and test them. So there's lots of different experiments as part of the course, certainly not just the 12 required ones. My favourite bit of the course probably is the organic chemistry. That's the one I enjoy teaching most. Okay, another question. How much homework will I need to do? It varies, I think, is probably fair to say. Like I said earlier, minimum requirement will be approximately 4 to 5 hours a week of independent study. If you've got an assessment to prepare for, you may step it up and do a little bit more. But generally speaking, rule of thumb is for every hour of contact time, you want to be putting in about an hour of independent study. Okay, next question. How many students are there in the class? It varies, but generally we would aim for a class size of around about 15 or 16. That's my optimum, and that's what I would aspire to get. If we have very big classes, then it would be split into 2. I hope that makes sense. What have we got next? Okay, another question. What are some good A-levels to do alongside chemistry? Great question. It varies a lot. It depends on what your progression route is, if you have one. Again, check what the entry requirements for particular courses are. A lot of people pair chemistry up with at least one other science. So something like chemistry, biology, maths is a very popular choice. Some people choose all 3 sciences. So you can do chemistry, biology, physics. Some people choose something a little bit different, like history. And pair it with, perhaps we've got students doing things like history, maths, chemistry. So really, it doesn't actually matter so much what you do for the most part, as long as you're doing something that you're really happy with, and you're likely to get good grades. Grades are the important thing at the end of the day. Okay, and I think this is the final question I've got. Do we do more practicals in the BTEC? I've never actually counted them, to be completely honest, but I think it's very similar in terms of practical content. The amount of practical work that you do is probably very similar in A-level Chem and BTEC Applied Science. So if anybody's got any more questions, now's a really good time. Otherwise, please feel free to get in touch. You know where we are, and we will, of course, get back to you with any queries that you have.